And welcome everyone. We are back again. Welcome everybody that's on the call, anybody that's watching. I know some of you couldn't make it today. We are once again on an off day. It's Wednesdays, which is not our typical day. We'll be back to our Tuesday and Thursday regular scheduling next week, and then going forward to the end of the class. But we're still in our week 3 in our web development foundations, where we're going to build off of what we did yesterday in day 5, where we started our application. We're going to continue on some fun foundational parts that will get us going to a place where we could start working on the front end of the actual page next week when we do our front end development, talk about some of those things, and then we'll do back end after that and focus on some of the more fun, in my opinion, interactions that make a website or web application cool. But today, specifically, we're going to be connecting the back end and front end. So it's more sort of foundational things. This is going to be routing some URLs and serving static files. This is something I mentioned before in passing. This is going to be our first round dealing with them. And Django doesn't do it amazingly well. I'm not going to try to stick up for Django and how it handles static files, but we're going to get it set up and we're going to make sure that everyone's clear on how to do it because we'll use it a couple of times next week as well. But real quick, the only real substance theory wise before we get hands on is this slide basically. So does anybody know? We'll define these things and work a little bit more later on it. But what URL stands for off the top of your head? We may have mentioned it in passing. You may know, but anybody? No. All right. So uniform resource locator. And it's like an address, right? So we know what it is, what it serves as is the place where a file is in some sort of computer, right? So if you remember that image that we had with the files and then the server and then the browser with the client on some sort of side sending responses and whatnot and requests, the URLs are the paths to those files. And we're using Linux is what the internet is built on. We're using Linux as our operating system in Python Anywhere. And so the URLs are going to be those paths that we're making to our files directly. And we're going to do some of that today to make it very explicit to show how the URL is going directly to a specific file in our directories. And we're going to do static files, and static files are the sorts of things that are served in that interaction on the client side, on the front side. And they're not the sort of thing that you need to go back to the server side to get typically. So it's loaded at one time, usually when the page loads up, and then it starts operating on that side, on the browser side, on the client side. So these are things like if you have, your style sheets, any scripts, maybe JavaScript will sit up there in your static files a lot of times. Um, those sorts of things, pictures, videos, those will be in your static files. Things that you're not going to need to grab several times out of your database, maybe just grab once. That's going to be in your static file. So we're going to set that up today, and we'll show you kind of what they do and where they live, but more importantly, making sure that our settings are correctly implemented so that we can go forward and use Django's framework to do the static files and what we need to do in our further development. So with that, I believe we're at the end of the slides and we can get hands on. So let's get out of here and go over into Python Anywhere. And one thing actually I was looking at, so last time kind of review, we covered pip, right? And we did some things with pip. Anybody remember what pip does and what it is generally? It's in the name. What do we do with pip?
This is kind of the gateway that gets us into the web backend with Django.
Kinda, kinda. Yeah, Django got us in there. So let's go into our console and have a look at what pip was doing for us. I really want everyone to be aware of this. So if you remember last time we did, zoom in a little bit, we started a virtual environment, right, in this VM. Why did we do that? What is a virtual environment? What is it doing? And how does it relate to pip? And does that help with the refreshing your memory? What's the purpose of a virtual environment?
We're able to create a separate code path that doesn't disturb the starting code path.
Right. You're right there. Very, very close. Alex, I see what you're saying. The thing. It's not for testing. Michael, you're very close with the non-disturbance, I think is the closest that we want to get. So there are these things called packages. Django is a package in Python, and it's one of the things that makes Python cool. And it's not exclusive to Python. It's there are packages in other software platforms. It's a typical way of referring to sets of software people have written programs that can be used and accessed by other developers and implemented in systems and downloaded and shared and whatnot. So you can have packages and different things. Maybe they're not referred to as packages, but in Python they are called packages. Is like the kind of basic default package manager. So it's a way to get things into your system. So I'm gonna show just again what pip outside of my virtual environment. If I do pip list, and this shows everything that is installed, what's called globally. These are system packages. It's this huge, huge list of things, right? And then what we do whenever we start a project, so I'm gonna clear this up, is we start a virtual environment, which is going to demarcate a space for us where we can exclude all those packages that we just listed and only use the packages we want for our project. And that's what pip and the virtual environments are doing. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'll demonstrate it again. This is also the first step in the documentation. If you're following along, this is going to be our first step every day. And I mentioned this to say like this is something I thought of. I'll get to the point that I thought of anyway. But this is where we start anyway. So follow along if you're following along. We'll start our virtual environment and show how many packages we have there. And to do that, we use the source command, and that's going to tell us.
So question,
Yeah.
the virtual environment, I think it's important. You're using pip to set that up. So how do I know we're in that virtual environment with you typing in, oh, I know, it's the tilde, right?
So so right now I'm going to show you that we're not in our virtual environment now, and pip doesn't set it up. So pip just gets like, so when I did pip list, I was outside of my virtual environment entirely, and there's still all those packages. Like I can use pip now and install packages. It'll just be on this system everywhere. It won't be related to my project, and that's not what we want to do normally, right? So pip and virtual environments are separate. Like what virtual environments do is make a place for the packages that pip gets. You could store them in that virtual environment, and it keeps it separate from the rest of your system. And to answer your question, how can we tell if we're in it? Is we look over here at the command line prompt, and we have the $, the tilde, and then UTC time there. But there is no name of a virtual environment in parentheses, and that tells us that we are not in a virtual environment. And I'm about to turn on a virtual environment. You'll see that pop up. You'll see what I'm talking about. Does that answer your question, though?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Cool. So, and then, yeah, keep those coming. If you got questions along the way, we'll absolutely stop, make sure we're clear because it's not sidetracking. So this command source is going to tell our bash console what files to load, and it refreshes and loads those files, right? So this is how we turn on environments, virtual environments. So we do the name of our virtual environment. In my case, I used VM, which is the name of the Python package that we use to make this. You could do that all the time if you want to. It's just a good standard training sort of thing. And then I'm going to use tab complete to get bin. So B and then tab, and then bin comes up, and then A for activate. And this is the command source, the name of your virtual environment /bin/activate. When I hit enter, so you got parentheses and the name of my virtual environment. Should match here, shows up here on the left. And that's how we know we're inside of this virtual environment. And now to verify, if I do pip list, and this is going to show me all the packages that are in my environment, whatever environment I'm in, it's much, much shorter list. And this is only the things that we've so far loaded for our project specifically. So we have Django, the version that we're using, and this Django environment that we added, and then whatever other dependent packages there are for those. Is that clear for everybody? Anybody got questions on that? I know, so kind of a shaky concept generally, but making a little bit more sense.
It's starting to come clear now.
Cool, cool. And again, this is going to be step one every day. So this is something that we're going to get in the habit of doing. So if you're like, yeah, I got it, and then next time we come in and we do it again, you're like, man, I forgot. Just ask the question again. It's totally not a problem. So now that we're in our virtual environment, and this is all something to keep in mind, that even though all things are files and directories, our virtual environment and the directory we are in are not the same thing. We can move around directories while staying in our environment. So we need to move into our top level project directory, which in our case is my site. So we're gonna use the change directory command cd and then my site, again, using tab complete to make sure I know that that is there as an option and I'm in the right place to begin with. And I'm not totally lost. And now we're here and we can get started. So, whoop, I almost put that into chat. I got to close this chat window. Okay. All right. So this is where we're going to start the day. We're going to start most of our days when we start going on any developing work. We turn on a virtual environment and we move into the top level of our project or our root directory. And then I'm going to start with a really handy command to help us visualize our project directory structure as it gets larger. Up to now, we've been doing this ls command, which is list, and it's cool and it's great and it shows us what's there. But as you see, we have this manage.py file, and then we also have a my site directory. And so with ls, we can't see what's in there. We can do another ls command and we can get, further down in there. But this is a very common thing to do. So there is a package, I guess, but it's a bash thing, not Python, called tree that it's already loaded here on Python anywhere. Very easy to download if you wanted to do it on your own Linux environment somewhere else. And there's some version of it for Windows and Mac and whatnot. But tree will print out this in-depth directory structure of the whole thing where we print it. So this very top part, this dot, this period, that's the directory you're in right now. So that's a common reference to the directory you are currently in. We'll use that a couple of times as we build our directory structures and reference other files in other places. But this tree command is going to be very handy as our project grows to be able to visualize the structure on where things are without having to go back to the GUI and try to flip around. This is going to be really helpful. But as you can see, this tree command, there's a bunch of stuff in here we don't need. This whole PyCache directory. This is like the name says, it's a cache. We don't need to read anything out of this. We don't even need to see this. So there's a way to ignore stuff that we don't want in our tree. And I'm going to put that command in here because in case you've forgotten, any command you type into your bash console, if you press the up arrow, it'll come back. You can cycle through your history one call at a time. So if you type in a call in once, then you can just reference it again without having to remember how to do it. So we're going to put this call in now, and it'll come in handy a couple of times later as we go. So we'll do tree. And then we're going to add some flags. So a space, then -a. This will give us all hidden files and stuff. So we'll see our .env file that we made to put our environment variables in, make sure it's in the right place. And then we'll do a space -I for ignore. And then we're going to pass it some sort of string in double quotation marks. And the patterns that we put in here are what will be ignored. So we want to ignore the entire PyCache. So 2 underscores, py cache, 2 underscores. And we can just leave it at that for now if we wanted to. But again, this is something we're going to use later. And I know for sure as we set up the files we're going to set up today, as we start using Django and use the standard starting files that come with it, we're going to want to ignore some other things. So we can put this vertical bar inside of our string. I haven't closed the string yet. And this is like an OR condition. So it'll match anything that matches any of these along the way. So it'll ignore the PyCache. I also want to get rid of CSS directories, and I want to get rid of JS, and I think IMG directories. And these are going to be subdirectories in our admin thing. I'll point out what's being hidden, but these are what we're going to want to use for our project to show the relevant directories and files, and we'll be able to see the structure in that kind of clean little tree thing. Tommy, yeah, you got a question?
I'm in the virtual environment, and then it gives me the timestamp and the tilde, and then I'm stuck at the $sign.
You're stuck at the $sign?
Yeah, because I have the virtual environment, the timestamp, the tilde, and then it doesn't show like my site.
Okay, so you just have to change directories into my site first.
Oh,
So do CD and then my site, CD space my site, all lowercase. That should do it.
all right, thank you.
Yep, for sure. So then
So
when I hit,
question, when
Yep.
we put this ignore in, I'm
Mhm.
not sure why we're ignoring Paycache, but
Yeah.
are we ignoring the entire Paycache link or file?
Yeah, we'll show you. It's gonna keep that directory out of the tree structure. And the reason we're ignoring it, I'm gonna hit enter and show show what happens here. So the reason we're ignoring that PyCache directory is there's nothing relevant to us in there. It pops up because we ran a Python script and it's caching some stuff to help us, partially because Python is so high on the language thing away from machine learning or machine language so that it's somewhat slow. So it uses some caching strategies to help speed it up for optimization. It's not something that we need to really be aware of where it is in our project structure. So that's why we're ignoring it. But this will show us all the relevant files and directories, I guess.
No, I got that, but
Okay.
it's the attachment of the existing CSS.js image.
Yeah.
Those are all linked to PayCache. Why not just say ignore PayCache?
Oh, they're not. That's what I'm saying. So these ones aren't right now. We don't have those anywhere yet. They'll show up later, and I'll point out where they show up.
Oh,
but
okay. Sorry.
We're going to. It's more convenient to add them now as our ignored string than to come back and rewrite our command.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry, those aren't in any way linked to each other. Cool. All right, so here it is boiled down to tell you how many directories you want. You can change all the behavior of this again, like any command. There's a million flags that can do all kinds of cool stuff. But this is going to be good for us to help visualize as we grow this project structure and we add what's called applications. And we're going to do that today because every Django project, what we've done so far, starts with this project and has this as the standard starting point that contains your settings.py, a urls.py, which we will talk about today, the WSGI file that we talked about already, this ASCII we're not going to cover, which is basically the same as a WSGI thing, but it's for asynchronous type service. So it's slightly different. Not something we're going to cover in this course at all. And then I've mentioned this before, not something you need to worry about, but I do encourage you to look it up. This _init _.py file is what makes the modularity work in Python. And so we're going to see this everywhere in every application that you make within a Django project. It's going to have this _init .py file. So these, again, standard points that we're going to start with. We're going to use this tree command as we get going. The first thing that we're going to start doing today, again, is handling our URLs. So let's go and look and see what we have on our site right now, just to kind of refresh our memory and see what it is we're going to be changing. So I'm going to open up my web tab in a separate tab. And then once again, the actual site in another tab. And I'm glad this didn't crash on me just as I opened it, because I just remembered as I did this, I didn't double check right before class. So here it is. This is the ending point we should have gotten to if you're following along all the way through, where at your URL, which should be just https :// lab, or I'm sorry, your username .pythonanywhere.com. And then you should have this rocket launching and said it works successfully. And then some links to some documentation, tutorial app, which is fun to build. I recommend doing that too. And some other stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this page and we're going to change this into something else, into something custom. It's not going to be anything cool to look at yet or ever. It's not a design class, but it's more the mechanics of how to do this. So we're going to replace our home page with another page. That's something we can customize and get rid of this generic thing. But we're also going to highlight what this can do for us. So I'm going to add up here the URL admin, just /admin/ adding to our URL. And when I hit enter, it's going to take me to this nasty looking site, like I just jumped into 1997 or something. And this is what our site looks like without any of our static files, which we are yet to load. But this right here, if you look closely and you ignore the terrible formatting, you see there's a username and there's a password, there's a way to log in, and it says Django administration. This backend piece, and we'll finish setting this up and look around in it once it's a little bit prettier, gives us a way to log in and do site administrative tasks, right? So this is something that not everyone would have access to, but site administrators would have access to. This is like the behind the scenes thing that maybe your front end users don't get. And there's something, again, that comes standard with Django, and a beginning part of the project is setting that up. So let's get that set up and log in, have a look, and see what's going on. First thing we need to do to do that is create ourselves a super user to be able to go in there and do all the things that we need to do. So I'll clear this up. I'm back to my bash console. We're going to do that here in the bash console. And the first command that we need to run is to create, well, actually, hold on. Before I'm going to do a little quick quick knowledge check. I told you it was gonna be test today. This is the test. It's already happening. You didn't realize that it was happening. Um, we want to create something like a username and a password. Is that something that we want to keep in memory or storage?
Storage,
Storage. Why is that?
because you need that long term. It's got to stay. It's got to be stored for indefinite time.
Exactly. It's got to be stored between one session and the next, right? So you want it to last and persist from one time that you're there using your site to the next. So then we need to put that into some sort of database. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a command that's going to create a development database that comes standard with Django. And it's a very lightweight, simple database, and I'll show you what it is and where it is. Use this command a couple of times when we write our own database models and do our own sort of things, but this is what we need to do to get started to create our super users. So the first command is going to be our Python 3, the way we have before. We're going to enter through our app entry point, which is manage.py. So Python 3 space manage.py. It's going to be, that's really the same syntax as our main.py call that we were doing before, but recall the app entry point in Django is called manage.py. And then we're going to call migrate. And migrate is a little foreshadowing what we're going to do in week after next is when we write in Python, our definitions of our database tables, what Django is going to do is going to boil that down into something that can be understood by whatever database we're actually using, which will typically be a relational database of some kind based on SQL. If you're not familiar with SQL, SQL, don't worry about it. We'll talk about it a couple of times. Today's the first time. This migrate is really that process of translation between what we write in Python on how we define what our database is going to be and the actual database, which is not Python. This migrate command that we do now is going to install some standard database tables that we need. Things like user authentication and the basic parts that we need to get going to do the administrative things that we were talking about here, and they'll show in just a second. So Python 3 space manage.py space migrate. When we hit this, it'll give you this nice satisfying list of all the things that it did. And it says apply running migrations. So operations to perform, scroll up just a little bit here when it says apply all migrations, admin, auth, content types, and sessions. These are all Django applications that come custom. These are all things that exist. You can interact with them in different ways. They come out of the box, so to speak. And so this will give us the ability to create users, to create administrative hierarchies, groups, different, so word I'm looking for, permissions. There we go. Permissions and access and those sorts of things to the site that you're building, right? So again, we'll get a little bit more into this in a second. Let's create a super user so we have some way to actually log in and do some of this to demo it. So I'm gonna clear up my screen. So now that we've migrated, we're gonna do our next command, which is gonna be another, once again, Python 3 space manage.py. Using tab complete is helpful. You have to type it all out and you know you're in the right place. And we're going to create super user, all one word. So we're going to create a super user who, as you would expect, is going to have full privileges on everything. So when I hit enter on this, it's going to enter us into, the interface here directly in our call to enter the information that we need to, our username, our password, to create that. Let me get this. I've got the Zoom stuff all on my way. All right, so now I'm going to hit enter. It should walk me through this. It says username. You can leave it blank if you want to use the username you already have for your Python Anywhere. I'm going to do admin1 just because I like that username. Don't steal my username. I'm joking. Email address, you got to put in some kind of email address that conforms to email address patterns. It does not have to be a real email address. This is not being checked or verified in any way. It just has to be listed in some way. So just put in something that has an @ has a dot something. Doesn't really matter what. Password. This does have some restrictions. It's got to be, I think, 8 characters and some special something, at least 1 capital, something like that. The tricky part about this, if you've never done one of these, is that you're going to get no feedback when you start typing. So I'm going to start typing my password, and you are all welcome to look if you like. It will show nothing. It will give you no feedback. So you have to know that you're typing in the right characters. You don't see anything at all on your screen when you do this. So if you're doing this yourself, don't hit a character on your keyboard thinking it's not working and then hit it again. You've now hit the thing twice. So I'm going to enter my password.
Well, when you do these password things, is something already set up with any kind of security? Like uppercase, lowercase?
Yeah, there are.
Is that built in?
Yeah, that's all built in. There's some basic level of validation like that where it'll reject really simple ones. Like try to put in 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll say it's too short, and it'll give you some of the restrictions.
Okay.
But yeah, keep it. I think it's got to be over 8 characters. Got to have a capital, and I think a special character, if I remember all the things correctly. But and then you have to re-enter it. So again, I'm gonna do this again. Don't look at my secret code. Cool. So there we go. So if you are able to blindly type in your password correctly twice, you should get this thing that says super user created successfully. And then you get control back to your bash console. So now what that's done for us is it has set up our database tables here for all these. We applied our migrations. We'll go through more of this in detail of what migrations are, how we make them on our own. But this is a required first step when going, because you're going to need to use admin and auth and content types and sessions to do basically anything. So one of the very first things that we're going to do in any project is run migrations initially and then create a super user so we can get to our back end. Then the next thing that we're going to do before we go and double check that this worked, because if we go back there now and log in, and even if we refreshed everything, it would still look this terrible, clunky uselessness. And we don't want that. So we want it to be something that's a little bit more appealing than this. And this is where some of the stuff comes in handy, the built-in stuff. And this is where our tree ignore thing is going to come in handy as well. So let's set up our static files and get that going so we have something more appealing to look at. To do this, we're going to have to go into our settings.py file. And it's going to be easier than the GUI. So I'm going to slide over into that, open up my files, another directory. And that's going to be in, so here's our project root, my site directory, the inner my site directory. Oh, I forgot to call this out. Once we ran that migrate file, we got this db.sqlite3 file that popped up, and you'll see that now in your project root directory. This is that database that I was telling you comes standard with Django that's for development. It is in no way secure. It is not intended to be used for something that you expect to have actual people coming and using. If you want to switch over to something like that, Python Anywhere has some free MySQL database thing that you can switch over to very, very easily. It's structured the same way as what this SQLite 3 is, and it's a real simple change in your settings to do that. We're not going to do that in this course. This is good enough for us for our training purposes, but just be aware that this is really good to mess around with and play with, but don't use it if you're going to be putting something out that you want to be live and have actual internet access. It's not secure. All right, so enter my site directory to get to our settings.py file. So we got our .env, there's our ASCII, our settings, URL. So we're going to settings.py. And let's set this thing up to where we can handle our static files. So we need to start by importing a package, which by convention we do at the top of our file. No matter where we're going to use that package, we do all of our import statements at the top. And again, typically style-wise, if it doesn't start with this from, if we just start with the word import, like we're going to this time, those go towards the top, and then anything that's like from and more complicated kind of goes to the bottom stylistically, but it doesn't matter. It's more important to have it at the top. Also, because of sequential control structures, you want to make sure that all of your packages and things that you need, your files, whatever it is, classes, like we did with this env class, all of that needs to be imported before you use it, right? So top of your page someplace. Before you do anything else, do all your import statements. So import, and we're going to import OS, which is short for operating system, very common Python package for interacting with your operating system and grabbing different things out of it. We're going to use this to add things to this constant right here on line 18 that came standard. It's on my line 18 since I've added a few lines. It's somewhere near that for you too, hopefully. We're going to leave this how it is. We're not going to change it. We're going to use this though. And I want to highlight it real quick just to show what it is. This base underscore dir. Again, all caps showing that it's a constant, which in Python doesn't actually exist. This is a variable, but it's telling us as humans that this is not going to change throughout, really. It's a constant. We don't need to break down exactly what this is doing, but basically what it is doing is taking our high-level root directory, and making that the reference point for everything else that we're going to do in our project. And so when we make other directories in here and tell Django where to find things, we're going to be doing it in reference to this directory. So we're going to need to grab this right here, this baster. I'm going to copy it. We can just write it by hand later if you want to. But we're going to need to add this into a spot lower on the settings file so that Django knows where to find our template files. And our template files will get very explicit, very, very clear on where those are and what those are. Basically, it's where our HTML is going to sit. Our layouts of our page is where it's going to sit. So we need to tell this thing. You missing a file, Michael?
Yeah, when I go into files,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the my site that we worked on yesterday.
You don't see any of the my site directories at all? Or you don't see
No.
the settings file?
Well, in the directories, I see it. If I
Uh-huh.
click on my site directory, it just gives me the two files.
Oh, yeah, but click on the other. So there should be a my site, second my site directory. There should be, like on the top level, it should be manage.py.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is
No,
what
no
happens
worries.
with
No, yeah.
Live.
Yeah, no, that's, and well, it's also, it's the fact that they're both named the same damn thing, which is kind of confusing when there's only these two things. Hopefully that'll become clear in a second, but that's absolutely an
Okay.
easy mistake to make. Don't worry about it.
All right, I'm good. I'm back on line 18.
Nice, nice. All right, cool. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this baster constant, which I will keep calling it that because it's technically what we're calling it, and I'm just gonna copy it. I'm gonna move down to a little further into something called templates down here on what's on line 58 for me. And templates, again, this is going to show where our templates are going to be. It's letting Django know how to find them, where they're going to be. We're going to tell it what directory we're going to save them in, and not specifically hard code exactly which directory, but we're just going to give it a name for all directories that will have templates in them. And we'll have several. Each application we'll make one application in class, but a project ends up having several applications. Each application will have its own set of templates. So we want to name it something generic that can apply to all things. So I'm down here down on my templates list. This is a list containing a dictionary. We know dictionaries have key value pairs. So here's our first key is backend, and there's a value for it. We have no reason to change any of that. The second key, capital DIRS, is associated with an open list as its value. So this is where we want to add our change, the thing that we need to update here to tell this where to look for templates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in my base dir constant from above. You can just write it if you want to. It's all caps, base underscore dir. Just as it is, right? Because this reference is something that's called above. So we don't have to put in quotations or anything. And then slash, because we're going to be adding to this. So we're adding something to this. So on top of the base dir, we want to add a string and the word templates, all lowercase. This is arbitrary. You can call this whatever you like. I encourage you to call it this because it's descriptive, follows convention. You'll know what it is later, but it does not matter, really. The computer does not care what you call it. This is more for convention for us to know what is in this directory as we do it, and it'll be easier for us to properly name our directories if we use something logical like templates. Cool. So now we've set that up. And the other piece that we need to do in here right now is setting up our static directories, which is a little bit down from here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Hopefully everyone had a chance to update this. But if not, if you got questions, we can roll back to it. But I'm going to scroll down past our auth password validators and our language codes, which we can mess with at some point if you like, almost all the way down to the bottom. 122 for me, I get this static underscore URL constant, and it's set to static slash as a string. We're going to leave that alone. This is fine as a URL. We can leave that as it is. That's the thing that comes with it, but we're going to add two more settings that we need to make this all work the way we want it to work. So the first one that we're going to add, and this is where it can get confusing, so definitely ask questions as we go. If it's not clear what we're doing and why we're adding these things, ask. So the first one we're going to add is called our static underscore root, all caps. And this is going to be a place where all static files throughout our project, again, this will have, as a real Django project, would have numerous applications, and each one would have their own static directories inside of them with their own static files inside of those. What we do, and we're going to do it here in a second, is we run a command every time we publish to the web to collect all those files and put them in one place so that the web browser can serve them out of one place, and it saves time once it's up and live on the internet. This static root setting is that directory, the one master place where all things are going to go at the top level of our project root. So we got to make sure we get this right and set it in this place and on the Python Anywhere side. But that's conceptually what we're doing. That's what we're setting here. So we're going to use our OS package or module that we imported at the top. So we do os.path, all lowercase, and then .join. And this is a way that we're going to add things to our path, and we're going to add or connect two paths is really what we're doing here. So we're once again going to use our base dir. So we're going to add something to our base dir. So we use that same base dir. I just pasted it again because I copied it from before. But again, you can copy or write it if you like, all caps, base underscore, all caps dir, comma, and then the name of the directory we want to use as a string. What I'm going to use, not caps, is static underscore main. I encourage you to use the same, but you can use whatever you like, as long as it is not this. You cannot call it static. You don't want your static root and your static URL to be the same. Django will wag a finger at you and complain if you try to do that. So it does not really matter what you call this, and it does not really matter what you call this, but they cannot be the same thing. Everybody tracking? All right. Cool. So this, again, the static root, think about it as is in our project root, and is where all static files, which will be pictures, layout, color schemes, videos, all those things are collected in one place so the browser can find them easily, faster. The other thing we need to tell it is where in the project to go and find those files, where we're going to put our files in all of those applications that we're going to make in our project. And so that is, again, a constant. It's going to be called static files, all one word, underscore dirs, for directories, right? So this is going to be, what are we calling these directories? It should be one thing that we're calling all the directories throughout. And this is going to be passed as a tuple. So we don't use tuples often, but we'll use them a couple of times. So here is one place where we use them. So remember, open parentheses for a tuple. We're going to say os.path.join, just like we did before. We're once again going to join our base dir, comma, and this time we'll call it static as a string. That's okay if this one and the URL are the same. That's totally fine. And this will also be useful because it's logical, just like our templates directory before. Our static directory is going to have our static files in it. So static is a good name for this one. Now, since we're in a tuple, we're not done here. We have to put a closing parentheses at the end to close off this opening parentheses. Don't forget that, right? So we have the outer parentheses is the whole thing itself as a tuple. There's only one thing in it, which is this, which is the os.path.join, which has its own set of parentheses. So there's two sets of parentheses there. Don't forget those. I also am going to add this, and I want to call this out as a Python thing. I'm going to put a comma right here. This is what's called a trailing comma. It's not required. You don't have to do it, but it will not break anything and is absolutely recommended. If I scroll up here and look at this list right here, this author, it doesn't really matter what this list is. It's a list, and you can see that it's a list of looks like dictionaries with key value pairs. The very last one has a comma, and it'll be like that with just about anything ordered. There's a dictionary. The last item in the dictionary has a comma after it. It's a really common thing to do so that we just don't forget to add it. We can add more things to lists and these things that can carry more things. That's totally fine. And that's the idea, is just by convention, we add that there. So I'm going to add that comma. Want to call it out. It is technically optional, but we can do that. So we're going to save that. We're done with this for now. And we have to go run one more command before we're done with all of this. So now we've set up our directories to handle our static files. We need to go run this command to collect all these static files into this main directory, like we just said. So let's go back to our bash console after we save this. I'm going to clear this screen so we got some some more space. And we're going to do our Python 3 again, manage.py, so the app entry point for Django. And then we're going to call another command, which is collect static. All one word, all lowercase. When you hit enter on this, what it should do is it should say, oh no, we found an issue. The static files thing that you set doesn't exist, which that's not a problem. It just means it'll make it. And then it'll say, okay, 127 static files copied to this location. And it should be that static underscore main location. And we can verify that this happened. And this is where our tree ignore thing is going to come in handy. Let me clear this up. I'm going to zoom out a little bit before we get going because it's going to be a little bit bigger. That's not going to be huge now. But I'm going to scroll up until I hit my tree command. Hit enter and just have a look at what we got now. So now we have, here's our root directory, which again is the home / username / my site. We have our database thing in here. There's our manage.py my site. And now we have our static.main directory. And it has this admin subdirectory. And this is the thing that makes our admin side that I told you about look a lot prettier. And this is going to have all these subdirectories of CSS, JS, and image that we don't need to look at. They do exist. Just knowing that this is here and showing that this came package standard when we did collect static, it just pulled in 127 files. And it should, once we go here, well, actually, first things first, on our web app, let's refresh or reload the server side. So either on your web tab or in the code editor, anything that looks like this little recycle symbol, I guess. These little arrows pointing back to each other. The recursive arrows reload to the server side. May not be necessary here, but good habit to go back. And then we'll refresh our browser. Oh, it didn't work because I forgot one step. I always forget this step. On the web tab, before we do any of that, we have to tell Python anywhere. It's even right here. I'm looking at the documentation. It's number 10. Step 10. Skipped it again. Scroll down and we have to tell Python anywhere where that directory is we just made and what URL we're using in our static files settings. Overlook this. If we overlook that, it won't work, right? So let's set that up real quick. This is very straightforward. This is going to be just like the example because this is the setting we have in the settings.py. So we'll just do /static/ and hit the little check mark to make it save. And then I'm going to copy our working directory path because that's where our static files directory is. I'm just going to paste it down in here. So it's going to be home / username / my site / and then we're the static underscore main directory that we just made. So this should be, in theory, the last step we need to do. I'm going to go ahead and reload server-side code just for good measure. May not be necessary, but I want to make sure everything is done proper. And even though that still doesn't prevent me from skipping steps.
What did you add at the end of my site?
The static
Main, okay.
Yep. This, which is whatever we put as our static root setting. So it should match this. Right. Okay. So now that reloaded, hopefully, yeah, and it looks a lot prettier. So now we have this thing that looks way better than it did. And we should be able to log in using that super user set of credentials that we made before. So if we do this, see if I can do this without saying my super secret password out loud. I always have to say things out loud as I type them. All right, so there we go. So now as we log in here, also as a quick note, if you forget those credentials, it obviously didn't save anywhere in the browser. You can't get back to it. There's no way to recover it really. But don't panic. Just make another super user and you can just log in and get back in like this and adjust credentials. So this is the admin panel is what this is called. This is where you can do Django administration. Not a place you would send users typically, but again, if you're building this for an organization, their site administrators would have access to this possibly. This is going to give you a way to get into your database and interact with it directly in ways that we're going to create as developers for our end users. So this right here, if we go in here, we can click on, say, users. And there should just be our admin user, our super user that we created. But this gives us a way to look at them. We can view them. We can do some basic administration here. We can add users up here at this top button, create new ones. We can edit this one, add details of, first name, last name, update the email address, change their status to staff, not a super user anymore. We can make groups. Again, that's something that comes standard. We can use out of the box groups for permissions and choose specific permission sets. I guess there aren't out of the box groups. You have to make groups out of these out of the box permission sets. And they're broken down by those applications that we saw before, right? So authentication and authorization, content types. Whoops. Those are the things that when we did our migration
Yeah.
existed. Yeah.
I wasn't able to get that. When I put the tree, I only
Mhm.
get one directory and 8 files instead of the 3 that you had. So that's
Uh-oh.
not coming up for me.
Uh-oh. Okay. Okay. I was going to stop for a second, see if anybody got stuck. It sounds like a couple people got stuck. Sounds like you got stuck. Sounds like Michael got stuck. This
Yeah,
is a
I'm
standard
stuck.
checkpoint. Okay. Okay. Cool. So, well, I mean, not cool. It sucks being stuck, but let's get you unstuck. This is a good checkpoint to do that. This is a good place to be if folks could get to this. If not, then let's see. All right. So who had the question? Was it Tommy? Was that you had the question? That was stuck? And I know Michael was too.
Me, Lucci.
Oh, Lucci, I'm sorry. Yeah. I didn't see who it took themselves off. Okay, cool. So do you want me to hop in and have a look at your
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
system? All right, cool. Let's do that.
L Pinkay.
This one right here. All right. Nice. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to check out. You know what? I'll just do it in one thing. I'm just going to check out your site. Okay. So no changes there. And that's good. All right. So what problem were you running into? Was it in your console, in the bash console, you run into a problem?
Yeah, I only get, when I run tree, I only get one directory instead of the 3. I didn't add
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Okay. So you have to run the collect static command.
Oh,
So that was 1 second here. This is back in my console. So yeah, because you're just missing this static main directory, right?
yeah.
So then you just need to run. Hold up. This right here. It's Python 3 manage.py collect static.
Okay. I have that. Python that manage that I collect static,
Mhm.
and when I run it, it still gives me the one directory instead of.
So you're misspelling it. Look, I'm looking at your command right now.
I misspelled what?
You misspelled manage
Oh,
for manage.py.
there you
This is
go.
again one of the huge things I keep. It encourages tab complete. It'll prevent misspellings. It's really, really, really useful. Use tab complete. See, then it's gonna get the whole thing.
Yeah.
Let's take out that dot. Yeah, there you go. And take out that dot .py. There. Now it should work. Hopefully. Hit enter on that. See what happens. Yep. Now it's working. Boom. All right, cool. Now run tree, and it should show you those things. And then, yep. Now you got your static
There you
main.
go.
Cool. And then, yeah, make sure that you update the what's it called?
Yeah.
These directories here on your.
I
website.
did.
Okay.
All right, let me see if that works. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, no worries. All right, Michael, you want to have a look at yours? Are you still running problems?
Oh yeah, knock yourself out. I went to the error log and it was just errors
Maybe.
everywhere.
Made it even worse.
No,
Okay. All right, let's have a look.
it's like driving on Route 3 out here.
All right, so I'm going to go to your web tab first and see if I can replicate the errors. All right, yep, something definitely went wrong. Cool. Let's slide down here and go to the error logs. Most recent one should be at the bottom.
So it's
Okay. I see at least one misspelling.
where?
That might be a problem,
static. Yeah. Okay.
but this right here is also a problem because that's not going to throw an error. That'll cause you a problem somewhere. So you just definitely got to change, but that's not throwing this error. So that's not what we're looking for. That's something that's good. You got to change it, but that's not going to solve your problem yet. So let's figure out your problem first. So right here, name error, name OS is not defined. So what did you forget to do? Anybody? What did Michael forget to do? If OS is not defined, what is that saying to us?
Was that first set up in the bash control of getting OS connected to
No, it's not. It's
Django?
not. It's not in Bash. It's not in Bash.
Oh,
So he probably put the import OS, but did not define it under the static component.
Close. You're right there, but kind of inverted
Like,
some things. So so when it says OS is not defined, that generally means that it's treating OS as a variable name because it's not a name it recognizes. And when it's not defined, it says, okay, it's a variable you have not defined somewhere, right? That tells me, since OS is a package, that it was not imported. So, Michael, I'm assuming you just don't have import OS at the top of your settings.py file. But let's go have a look.
don't remember.
Let's go have a look. So we go into files and my site. Got lost for a second there on my own situation. My site again, settings.py. And then, yes, right up here at the top, right up here by line 12, you need to add import OS. And that should take care of that error for you.
Oh, line 12.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be exactly line 12, but somewhere at the top of the page. And then
That's
save
just,
and refresh.
import OS, right?
Yep. Let's save that and reload it, see if that works, and I'll get out of this for you. I don't know if that's going to mess things up, but just in case.
Run that. Oops.
Right. Cool. All right. If that does not work, flag me. We'll take another look at it. But we're gonna start. We're gonna keep moving on.
Sure, I'll just follow along.
Yeah. No. Just raise your hand if it doesn't work. I'm just gonna keep talking about the next piece that we're gonna do, and talk about where we're gonna go from here. But you should be right there. If you get another error, man, just let me know. We can dig into it.
Well, it said it worked, but I didn't get the display like you got.
Okay. So check in your. Hold on. I'll do it since I'm still there. See if you got your static. Yep. Okay, this is right. Did you update the spelling in your settings.py to make sure that says static underscore main on
Well,
status?
I have to go back to file to do that, right?
Yeah, settings and settings.py.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then once those align, it should be exactly where you need it to be.
Down. We added that stuff down below, right? 114, 116.
Here, hold on. It was in.
Maybe.
It's down towards the end when we called the static root setting is what you're looking for. So down towards, scroll all the way down to the end. It's right here on 124. Yeah.
So save it.
And then reload your browser or server side. Make sure you don't skip that step too. Easy to forget. All right. That work? I'm still thinking about it.
No, you said something like you have to run it here on my site. It's saved.
Yep. Yeah. Once you save it, just reload on the server side. Just reload your server side code once you save the settings.py. So either on this web tab, just the big reload button, or in that thing, the little recycle button thing at the top. And then refresh your browser. It should work.
Okay.
Did it work?
Just reloaded.
Okay.
Okay, I still got installed works. So I got the Rocket display, not the login.
Oh yeah, you have to type admin up at the top. add into the URL because you're still going to have, we haven't changed anything on the, we haven't changed the homepage yet. So everybody should still have this, but to get to that admin login, you have to manually add /admin up at the top.
Where do you do that? Do you do that in the
In the
web?
top, yeah, in the browser, the top URL, just type in the word admin right after your base URL domain, right here. So you don't want to point on in your URL bar in your browser. Tracking that?
Okay, I got that right here. Boom, and then put admin.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So
Cool.
I mean, I got
Oh.
username and password, but not as pretty as yours.
It doesn't have the prettiness yet. All right. If you can't get your static files working, let's get through this next piece. Try
Yeah.
routing the homepage, and then we can go and treat static file debugging as a separate thing we can come back to. You could do this part too without the static files working yet.
Okay, no problem.
Cool. So we'll keep that as back burner for now, and we're gonna crack on adjusting exactly that. We're gonna do that home page change and serve up something special. Well, not super special, but our own custom thing. To do this, we're gonna start our application, right? So we are going to use the URLs file that comes standard to do some routing and mapping and things like that. But we're gonna need a file that we don't have in our my site directory. So back in a bash console, let's start an app so we can get going. So we're going to do Python 3 once again, manage.py, again, use tab complete to make sure to avoid misspellings and to make sure that we're in the right place. And then we're going to say start app, all one word, all lowercase, and then the name of our application. So this could be anything, it's arbitrary, whatever you like. But I recommend that you name it what I'm about to name it, which is going to be Todo, T-O-D-O, all lowercase. We're going to reference this a lot. We're going to do a lot of things with it. So if you call it something else right now and you run into problems debugging later, I warned you. All right, so Todo, Python 3, manage.py, start app, Todo, hit enter, and it will give me nothing. It'll just come right back and say, all right, great. I give you no confirmation. So I'm going to go up and hit the tree command like we did before, and we'll have a look at what we got now. So now you can see underneath our static main directory, we have a whole new directory with another init.py, this admin.py, apps.py, migrations, which is yet another directory, which has its own init.py, models, tests, and views. So we are going to go through all of these and what they are. These are the standard pieces of a starting point for a Django application. And this is where we start making some things happen, right? So generally, just by definition, we'll go through this over and over again to make sure we know all of these. But our admin, this is where we interact with that admin panel that we're just talking about. We can customize those things. We can make the colors different. We can tell it how to search. When we write our own models, we will register them there. Apps, we're not going to do a ton with right now, but we will look at it real quick and grab some information out of it to set this up. Migrations, we've talked about already. This is how we do the data thing. This will list each database migration for this application specifically. Models, we'll spend a lot of time on week after next, is where we define our database and the different tables inside that database. That's going to be all classes. Tests, again, we're not testing this class, but this comes standard, having a place for you to build your tests and write them, and I encourage you to do so. Views.py, place that we're going to start. It's the very bottom of this. This is where we're going to write our what's called views. And in Django, views are the directions, the algorithms that tell our program what to do when people go to URLs. It's going to say, okay, what am I doing when somebody goes to your website? And this is where we do that. So let's start defining some of those things now. Actually, before we do that, before we write a view, we do have to add something into one more setting. Now that we have an app, we have to tell our project this app exists in our settings.py. So let's go open up our settings.py and have a look at one we got to add. So files, open this up in a new tab so we keep it all open. So my site, now we see we have a to-do directory, but we're going to go on the my site, the second my site directory to find our settings.py. I'm gonna go in here, and then I'm gonna scroll down not too far, right below our all allowed hosts. This installed apps is what I'm looking for. It says application definition, the installed apps. And if you look at this again, this should be starting to become somewhat familiar. The standard parts that we've already used, the admin, auth, content types, sessions, static files. We haven't done anything with messages, but the rest of these we've at least seen somewhere. These are the apps that come standard. Again, these are just Django apps that come in built into the project. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our own app to this. Now that we had one, actually, before we do that, if you're following along, stay there. I'm just going to show you where this is coming from, though. And if you're curious, you can come and have a look as well. But I'm going to open up our to-do application directory that we just made. And I'm going to go to this apps.py. I'm going to open this up, and we'll just have a look at what's in here. So this is importing. There's an import statement up here at the top where it's importing some stuff from Django, and it's importing this class app config. So someplace, if you really wanted to look in it and see what this is, it's a class. It's a Python class, just like any other class. The one we were looking at that comes standard is, again, just a Python class. This is similar to what we've done before. We'll do some more of this. If you remember the classes that we did before, when we did our car class, did not have parentheses. This is inheritance. So this is taking like this class and doing stuff as a starting point from there and then adding something special to it, something unique to it. But this is generally, again, stuff we've already used. And what we're going to do every time you start an application is going to start with one of these configs. And what we need to do is take this reference, this camel cased, capitalized name of our class that follows the conventions of class names, and add it to our settings.py. So this to-do config is similar to these Django.contrib things we need to add to this list. So here's a list where we've got the trailing comma. So we'll go right at the end of that. We're going to add another string, so quotation marks. The name of our app is the first part. So we're going to do to-do, that's the name of our app, dot apps, because that's the file in which this class that we're looking at up here, right here, to-do apps, this is what we're doing in reference to our root directory, which is my site, right? Our base directory. So to-do dot apps dot name of the class we want to use, to-do config. And then I'll put a trailing comma. Now this is going to tell the project of Django, and I just saved it to make sure that we have it saved. This is going to tell the Django project that we have this application and where the configuration is to start, right? Cool. Now we can start doing some more stuff. We're going to start doing a pattern that we're going to follow over and over again here when we do Django development. So we're going to what's called write a view. So we're going to start in our views. Then we're going to map a URL and then do something with a template. We're going to follow that pattern a lot and then maybe add navigation once we get to that point. But the first three steps we'll do over and over and over again. We're going to dive into that first now. Let's go to our views first. So we've already set up our settings. Let's go up to our project, top level project directory. So my site. So we got /home /username /my site. And we're going to go to to-do directory. And we're looking for a views.py. I'm going to open this up in the GUI because it's just going to be easier to write in here. And we open this up. This is, again, what comes standard. It's going to have this little warning here that says, hey, you're importing this render thing, but you're not using it. It's because we're not using anything yet. We'll use it in a second. That could just calm down. This very, I guess, way, we can do two different types of views. We can write them either as functions or as classes. So we're going to start by writing all of our function or all of our views as functions. And then at the end of class, last week, we'll refactor some of them into classes and kind of show the difference why you might want to use one over the other. But at first, we'll do functional views. So let's write our first one. And this should be back to what we've done before with just DEF, the reserved word in Python. And this is where the Python is what we're going to be writing in. We're going to be writing in Python. We are using Django, but Django is Python. So now we're back to writing our Python. So we're going to define a function. And this, by convention, I recommend we're just going to use something called index. And this is going to be our home page, right? So we talk about why it's called index shortly, but that is kind of just an internet standard out there for like the home page being called index. So we're going to define our function that goes to the home page as index. Inside of it, we'll pass this thing called request. So again, if we think back to our HTTP interactions, there's a request that is going to be coming from a browser. Think about what we are building here is exactly that thing. So a request has come, and imagine that is hitting our root URL, which is going to be username.pythonanywhere.com. And we're telling this Django project what to do with that request, what response to give back. So it's going to go into our files and directories. The server is going to be like, cool, what do you want to respond to this request? So syntactically, we got a colon. Then we're over one indentation to define what we want our function to do. And this isn't going to do anything complicated. It's just going to return a template. We're going to tell it what template to send back to us. So we're going to hit a return statement, just the word return lowercase. And then we're going to use this render package. And render basically is going to take an HTML page and put information into it and put it up on the page for us so that we can see it. That's what it does. So we're going to say render, and we're going to pass it the request that we got, because there's information in the request that we might need, we might use, and it's going to use some of that to render some information on there. And then the name of the template that we want to use as a string. We haven't made this template yet, but we're going to reference it now and then go make it. So we're going to do index.html as a string, as a template we're going to reference. And this is a fully written, very uninteresting, but functional view in Django. So this is a Django view. It's a Python function. It's a functional view. And what it's going to do, again, is going to handle a request from a browser and tell it what template file specifically to render in that browser window. All right, and that's all we got to do with writing a view so far. Views don't have to be complex. They can be this simple, a couple of lines of code, and we're good. So we've got this saved. I'm going to save it again just because, you know, don't want to leave without saving. So the first step is write a view. Our second step is we're going to map URL. Now to do this, there's a couple of ways to go about it, right? We have choices on how we do everything. So I'm going to go up to my top level project. I'm going to show you what already exists as standard. And we'll talk about a choice that we can make here and a choice that we're going to make. But I want to highlight this as a choice. It doesn't have to be done this way. So if I go into the my site top level directory, this is alongside where settings.py is, we see this urls.py file. Let's open that up. Have a look in there. This again comes standard. I haven't added anything to this. This should look exactly like yours. If you go to my site urls.py, this is the top level project level URLs page. It's going to have this string at the beginning that explains all kinds of different patterns that you can use here. So this is really cool. So you don't have to memorize a lot of this. This comes standard on like different ways to interact with this URLs page. So it's got like how to import things from other views. We'll do this a little bit. We'll do some more of this right here. What we're going to set up though is this add a URL pattern as like an external URL configuration, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to wait to reference our our application level URLs. So our to-do list specific URLs through this project level thing. And the reason we're going to do it this way, instead of just writing all of our URLs directly here, which we could do, we could just use this one file and write everything here. The reason we're going to set up this way is because you will very quickly want to set up this way if you make it anything more complicated than the app we're going to do in this class. So this is really one conventional way that I encourage you to explore, and we're going to use it in this demonstrative purposes. But just know that we could put all of our URLs in just this file and just run with it and just stack them all up here. So what this thing is doing though is it's telling us when someone goes to this path, right? So this, if we look here, this admin/, this was already here when we got here. This is how we get to our site administration. This is defining this path right here on our URL. That's what this urls.py is doing. This is saying when someone comes to admin/, then you're going to do this thing. And what is this thing is serving a view, right? So there's a view somewhere. We can go look it up in the documentation someplace and see what their view is and see what it does. But what we're going to do is every time we write our own view, we have to map a URL just like this one. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to include all the URLs from our to-do list application, because we want to make sure that those things are all included in this project level. And then we're going to go write project level URLs to leverage that view that we made. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to add this same thing up here, this path blog, this example. I'm just going to copy this and change it to do instead of blog because it's the same pattern. That's what they have suggested. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add it above or below, doesn't matter in what order you add it to this list. Just make sure that you separate it by commas. So if you add it above, put a comma after it. If you add it below, trailing comma, just for best practices. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use this as just like the route that it goes to. So we don't need to define a specific pattern that it goes to. We're telling it just to include the to-do URLs as our basic point. We could, if we set up other packages the way that they said, other applications the way this suggests, like if we had several more things that want to have custom URLs for it, we could do that. For our case, we're just going to set it up with the blank URL input, which is going to be like the root, default to root. So now what we're doing is we're going to save this. We're going to go back to our project level directory. So my site, go to our application level to do. And then you see that there is not a urls.py file here. It does not come standard because again, this is a design choice. We don't have to include them here. We could just write them all up the top part and reference them in a different way. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a file here and write all of our URLs for this application directly here. So we do urls.py here in the making file thing. Hit enter. That should take us directly into our text editor. Cool. So now we have to import some things that are standard. So we're going to say from Django.urls import path. So we're going to use that to build our path patterns, just like we saw at the other top level project level or urls.py file. And then we're also going to from dot, which again means the same directory we are in. So the same directory that this file is located in. So from our to-do directory in our case, without having to say explicitly to do. So from space dot space import views. And that's going to give us everything out of that views file. And we can start using that for our URLs. And we're going to include here a URL patterns variable, all lowercase. This is standard, what's expected to be called, what you should call it. Don't get creative and call it something else. So URL patterns, all lowercase, all one word. And it's going to be a list. So open and close square brackets. And then we're going to put in path, open and close parentheses, and define a path. This is also going to be our root. This is going to be our index. The view that we're going to reference is the one that we just wrote. So the first path that we have doesn't have a custom URL. Just go to the bare domain. And we're going to say, so open string, nothing in it. Just open and close parentheses, comma. And then views dot, and then the name of the view we want to use. So all the views dot index was the name that we had. And then we're going to pass a keyword argument called name. And we'll call this also index. Trailing comma. I'm going to save this. So this is going to be a way that we reference this URL in the future. We could call this whatever we like, but again, keep it consistent so we know what things are called all the way through. Tommy, yes, what's your question?
For line 4, after I type that in,
Yep.
and I press enter, there's only one tab. Am I supposed to tab it again?
I mean, yeah, you should. It's okay. This on the inside right here, this probably isn't going to break anything.
Okay.
But yeah, it should be spaced roughly like this. And then there's one little piece that I absolutely forgot to do when we were at our top level project URLs. To make this work properly is we have to import these. Path import include. We need to add one more thing to the URLs on the top level that I forgot to add. Let's go back there and add that real quick. I was just double checking the pattern. So this is all we need for our project or our application level. Let's save this. Let's go back real quick to our my site urls.py. So this is a top level. And I forgot, since we're using this include, and here's a little error that I ignored. I forgot we have to actually import this include statement up here at the top. So right here along where it says Django, so from Django.urls import where it says path, we're just gonna do comma, comma, and then add include. Save it. Should take care of that error. And I'll actually include our things the way we want them to. Cool. All right. So now we've connected our project level URLs to our application level URLs. And we've set up in our application URLs a reference to a view. We wrote our first view to serve an index.html. So we have to go create that index.html someplace, right? Everybody tracking so far? Anybody lost yet? Cool. All right, let's keep going. All right, so the first step we're going to go through, we do views. We write a view, map a URL. Then the last thing we got to do, or the third step we got to do, is create a template or do something with a template, right? So let's go do that. What we need to do is make a templates directory. So we're going to go in our My Site directory. We're going to be at the top level My Site directory next to our static main and to do. We can make a directory here in the GUI. We could do it in the Bash console. Doesn't really matter. I'll do it here because again, it can be done any number of ways. So we're going to do something called templates. And again, this is a setting that we have already set. So don't get creative now. Use templates if that's what you put in your settings.py file earlier in the class. If you've been sticking with us, that's what it should be called. I want to say new directory. It'll think about it for a second. And then it'll take me here. It says there's nothing in here. So we're going to add a new file. And that'll be index.html. We'll say new file or hit enter. And it'll take us in there. And now we're going to do just a very, very little tiny basicest HTML to have something to look at. Just test to see if this all worked. And we will dive more into this later. But let's get something up in here to just get us going. Some real boilerplate basics. So HTML has these tags that start up with angle brackets, opening and closing brackets, and stuff goes inside these tags. So these are called HTML tags. They're everywhere. The standard for HTML5 is to start off with this. It's called a bang operator and the doc type. So we do exclamation point, doc type, and then HTML. So this is a standard beginning point of an HTML document. We'll include it in ours. And then below that, we're going to put an HTML tag. And what's cool about the text editor is when I write this tag, since it's noticed it's an HTML file, it does the closing tag on its own, which is a slash, and then the name of the tag again. So this is demarcating where on our page our HTML is going to go. So you can think of this right here, the space between for what's me, for what is on my page, what's me. What on my page is between lines 3 and 5. This is everything that's going to be visible on your page, the entirety of the page. It may not be visible, but it's on the page. Everything is there. All of it, right? So inside of this is where we're going to define the parts of this page. So think about what we said before about differentiating the space within something that already exists as a whole. That's kind of what we're doing here too. So we're going to demarcate some spaces. We'll get more into this as we go, but there are some big parts that are always usually included in an HTML page, right? So you'll have the head, which may not have visible pieces. Sometimes it does. And it'll have the body, which is like the main content where things go. So let's add those two parts. So again, we have something to look at on our page, and we'll dig into those more. So we have a head, which is just the word head inside tags. And inside of this, I'm going to add title tag. And inside of the title tag, I'm just going to put something, my site. So up here, you could, if you look at the top of this browser where it says index.html, or over here where it says bash console, that's what this title setting is. It's the very top name that's on your tab that's visible, not on the page, but like above in the browser. That's what this is. So we're going to call ours my site, just to have something to look at there. And then underneath our closing head tag, we're going to put a body tag. Similarly, closing it off. And inside, let's put something. We could just write plain text in here just to have something, but let's use one more tag. It's called H1. It's a heading tag, so it's the biggest heading tag. You can do headings H1, H2, H3, progressively smaller as numbers get larger. We'll say this is the index, and we're excited about that. So we can put anything we want to in there. But this right here is a really, really basic starting point for HTML. It'll give us something to look at on the page and hopefully serve this if we set everything up correctly. So now that I've saved, I'm going to reload the server-side code. We'll see if we can get our page working. Once that's done thinking about it, go back to my site. We'll refresh this. We'll still be in the admin section for now. That didn't break, which is encouraging. But in the admins panel, once you're here, if you're still here, this view site button will take you back to your site. So there's a little view site way to navigate back. And for me at the home domain, I have this is the index. So I no longer have the rocket. I now have my own custom HTML page. Anybody able to do that to this point? Yeah, I see one head nodding. I like that. See one thumbs up. That's two counts as success. All right, if everybody else didn't make it, y'all are hoes. Just get in the truck. No, I'm joking. Anybody totally stuck? Anybody have a problem?
I got template does not exist at slash.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Template does not exist at slash. That could be, but yeah, no worries, Alex. All right. So that probably is in your URLs. So what we can do, I guess we leave this as a choice. So in the documentation, there are a couple of things we did. This is definitely the absolute checkpoint that I wanted to hit today, for sure. So we can leave what's in the documentation about implementing Django's template language. That is kind of more like a front end thing. We can leave that for homework and next time, right? So we've got some time between now and next class, or we can kind of try to go through that real quick right now. So I guess that's one option. We could leave that off to next time and do some debugging now to make sure everybody gets up and running to this point. Or we could press on and kind of do the last little bits that are in the documentation. What are we thinking?
Pass through and then probably do something a little bit after.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Mike, that's also an option. All right. So yeah, we can press on. So there's gonna be some homework to do anyway, but I did kind of want to show how to set up the Django template language, because how we're going to be doing HTML from here on out. And it's really not that complex, fairly simple to set up. And then Tommy, if you're still stuck after this, double check your URLs and stuff. If you're still stuck after this, we can hang out afterwards and debug.
Sweet.
Cool. So to do this, what we're going to have to do is we're going to go basically take our index, what we have here, and we're going to break it up into different things. We're going to make one base, what's called a base template. That's going to include all the parts and pieces that exist on every single page. And then we're going to set aside another place, another part of this index, like this index HTML is only going to have the pieces that are just for this index page. So then when we add like an about page, which again, I'll definitely leave that for homework for everybody else. We won't walk through that again. It's just following the same pattern we just did, except instead of using the word index, you use the word about, right? The view, map the URL, do the template. When we do that, it'll be able to use this same base template that we're going to use and just put the about page stuff in there, right? So we're going to set that up now. It's one of the cool things about Django and how it works. Very easy to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we need another template here alongside this index.html in our templates directory. So I'm going to go back to my templates directory. I'm just going to make a base.html. Well, I guess I should have copied this first. In my index.html, I'm going to copy all of this. I'm going to take all this stuff. I'm going to copy everything. So what we're going to do is take all this stuff over in a base, and then it's going to remove the stuff we don't need and make the small change over there. So I'm going to copy everything in index. We'll come back and do some more changes to it in a second. I'm going to go back to my newly made base.html, which is blank right now. And we'll paste all that stuff in. So this has got everything in it. Now I'm going to go down here to the body. And inside this body, this h1 tag that we had before, I'm just going to delete that, remove it. And this is where I'm going to put in the Django template language blocks. It's going to start with curly braces, percentage sign, and it's going to close with a percentage sign and curly braces. So this is what Django's template language uses. These little things, they're very easy to mess up. It's extra stuff. It's kind of annoying, but that's how it is. They have a reserved word called block that's going to dictate that this block of page is going to be something, and then we can call it whatever we want to. This is a variable name. I'm going to call it content, all lowercase, to remind us that this is where our main content on our page is going to go. Again, content is a variable name. It could be anything. And the other piece that has to go in here is another set of Django tags. So curly brackets, percentage sign. I'm going to do the closing tag, the percentage sign, the curly bracket. It needs an end block tag. This is required. All lowercase, all one word. So our opening block tag with a variable name as we choose, whatever we want. I'm using content. I suggest you do the same for easy debugging later. And then end block to close it off. I'm going to save that. So this is our base.html. So our base template. So this includes all the pieces that we want on every part of our site all the way through. And now, back in our index.html, we can remove all the things that are going to be general and keep just the stuff that's relevant to our index.html, which is just that h1 tag. So I can just literally erase all this, erase all that. We got just this tag, and there it is. But we have to tell it some way to connect to that other piece and inject itself into that content block. So we've got to add a few more lines of code here real quick to make that work. The first one is a Django tag at the top. So curly bracket, percentage sign, and then the word extends, because we're extending our base template. And then we tell it what template to extend as a string. So base.html. And then close that off. Now that will tell it that we have this template extending the other template, so we can use all those parts and pieces from there. Now we need to further tell it what of this page should go where. So we have that block content on the other page. We have to wrap whatever content we want to show up in a similar block tag. So we do block, same name. It's got to match content. So all lowercase, spelled exactly the same way as the content block in the other page in the base.html. And then after our H1, end block. And that's it. This is how Django's template language works with HTML. Quick note on indentation: HTML does not care, unlike Python. So we can move stuff away from the edge. We can not move it away from the edge. This is a visual thing for humans. The computer does not care about an HTML. You won't break anything with your indentation. But now we can save that, and we reload our server side, and it should be just a refactoring. So hopefully we didn't break anything. Come back here and refresh, and it still serves exactly the same way. So the idea here is we broke out our templates into two different things using Django's template language, where we have our base template that has all the parts and pieces of HTML that are going to be constant on every page, and we can inject specific content. So from here, since we got 2 minutes, I mean, it is technically enough time to run through whipping up another page real fast, but I kind of want to leave that for y'all to do for homework and implement your own about page. The documentation shows how to do it. But any questions about this piece of it, the template tag portion, before we open it up for debugging and people that are stuck?
I think for me, I think this makes sense because this is basic HTML.
Yeah.
But I got lost in the setup of getting this going because some of the files didn't show up, and I think I'm just going to have to walk through the training all over again from the start.
Okay. That's absolutely an option. Let me know if you want to hop on again sometime later this week. Just because we don't have class tomorrow doesn't mean we can't meet up again and answer questions. So
Well,
reach
since
out.
you said that, then be ready.
Yeah, I will. I'm ready. You let me know what's good for you.
The train of questions are coming.
That's the idea. Yeah, reach out on Discord, reach out on email, whatever works for you.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions about what we covered tonight? Stuck somewhere you want to go over real quick?
I think I just didn't make a file somewhere, and that's where something broke.
It could be that you didn't make the template, but you want me to hop in and we have time now. We can hop in and look. We spend a couple minutes debugging if you like.
That'd be great.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, cool. So everybody else, if you want to hang out and debug with me and Tommy, it's absolutely worth the time to do it. I'm gonna keep the recording going because there's usually some value to be had from doing this. But we're at time, so if you want to hop, you totally can. Our next class is next Tuesday. We're gonna keep building from here. Practice all these things and do the about page because we're gonna have that next time. We're gonna use some of the navigation and stuff between it. So set that up if you got to this point.
Next week is week 4 or 3.
4.
Oh,
This is our
wow.
halfway point. So we've passed our halfway. We are at our halfway point.
Wow, that was fast.
I know.
Thank you
It's
so
fast
much.
pass. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Right. Tommy, let's see. I'm up into your stuff and see what's going on.
I think it started from the Bash card show because I think I got most of the stuff and we started making the files and the web part.
Okay. Well, hold on. Let's start by just see what's going on with this. Okay. I think I might see what it could be something as simple as just, yep. I see it. I see the problem right here. Do you see the problem?
Um,
Probably don't even know where to look. So this is really good. I'm glad you did this because this right here is showing once again when we have our debug set to true. This is what Django spits out as our developer information. This has a ton of info and it's great for debugging, right? So this is not Python anywhere. This is Django right here that we're looking at. So this has our full, called trace back. This is our stack trace that calls everything through. Tons of information in here as you keep going down, like all this meta information, uh, your IP address, all kinds of stuff. It's great, great stuff. But up here at the top where it says template does not exist at slash, it also shows us right here the template that it tried to get.
oh, did I put a comma instead of a period?
That's it. And then there's confirmation down here where it says return render. And so it shows you even specifically the line, like it says line 5 at this to do views.py. And then here's the whole thing. When I click on this, it shows the entire file right here and it highlights where it's wrong is in this call right here. You just put a comma instead of a dot.
So if I can just go into the to-dos views, I can just change that.
Yep. If you just do views.py and then just change that to a .html, so comma HTML, save it, reload on the server side, and then refresh your browser. And then if everything else, if this is the only thing that was wrong, then that should solve this problem at least.
So it's under my site to do and then views.
Views.py. Yep. That should be.
I change that to it.
Yep.
To period, save. And then I just go to the website.
You got to reload. Make sure you reload the server side. No problem, Michael. Thank you for engaging, man. And definitely reach out if you're still stuck. Yeah, Tommy, don't forget to reload the server side code before you refresh in your browser. You know what I'm talking about?
No, not really.
Okay. So if you're in this, like the text editor up here at the top with this little recycle button looking thing, the arrow is pointing at itself. You can click on that, and that's reloading the server side code. Or in your web tab, there's a big green button that says reload. Do either of those before, like anytime you make a change on the backend code, just before you go and look at the browser side, reload it.
Okay.
And then refresh your browser.
Okay, and then just click on the configuration for.
No, right? Yeah, yeah. Once you reload, then you should be able to go to the spot. That do it?
I think I had a lot of trace. It shows me a lot of different trace backs. So is this like all the areas I made?
No. There's still some other issue here. So that was not the problem, but it's part of the problem. It's still not finding your index.html. So let's just make sure that you have that, and it's in the place that it's supposed to be. So files, my site, templates. Yeah, you got an index.html. It's right there. That all looks good. All right. So then index, that looks good. Request index. Ah, wait. One more place I want to look. All right, so that all looks good in the application side. I'm gonna go look in your top level URLs to make sure that this is set up right, which it looks like it is too. To do is include. All right. Let's see what we can do. There's nothing jumping out at me. There may be something in there like a little hidden piece of white space or something that's making these not line up and making it to where it's not finding your template. Let's see. What is this telling us? This is telling us that it couldn't find the template. All right, let's check the URLs one more time. It's got to be in the routing there. So this views.index, import views, that's all right. Don't see anything wrong here. And let's check the top level URLs. No, that's also right. Include. Man, that's. I gotta tell you, dude, I'm annoyed. I'm annoyingly stumped on that one. See, maybe there's something enlightening here on our error logs. Oh. Internal server error templates does not exist. HTML. Okay. So this is telling me that there's something in the way that it's looking around in your path directories. So that could be, these are set right. This static files you didn't have set up right. I don't think that would do it though. Like you're missing this setting right here. You see that, Tommy, what I'm looking at? So you got to add that for sure. But that shouldn't be causing your problem here. Let me check in your settings to make sure that you hit the template settings stuff right. Yeah, that's a problem. See right there, he's telling me if you didn't use this OS thing, for sure you didn't route your template stuff right.
My site.
Yeah, right here. So here we go. This is the problem right here. So this definitely needs to be added. And yeah, and your static URLs didn't get routed. All right. So yeah, this is your problem. This is your culprit. You have to make some changes here in your settings.py.
Okay, I'm in the settings.py and then it starts
Yeah.
from the import OS.
Yeah, so that's right. That's good. You're good there. But see this little error that says that it's imported but not used?
Yes.
So that means that for sure you like I know because we used it 2 or 3 times. So you missed a couple of steps in there for sure. So what we need to do is well, there's a few things. So you have to add the to-do app here to your installed apps. And you're going to need to add your templates directory here to templates and adjust your static files directories down here. You can leave this one, but there's 2 other ones that we have to add down here. So that's like 3, 4 changes. They're pretty crucial. They're minor, but they're crucial. So do you have the documentation? Or do you want me to just flip mine open? You can look at the example because there's a full example settings file in the documentation. You could just grab the pieces you need from there and just copy and paste.
Gonna be that email that was sent out today, right? Setting up the homepage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one.
And then I'm in the setting up import OS and then
Yeah,
Right.
if you go, so you can either just copy that and well, then you have to adjust the username and stuff. But yeah, so you can copy the pieces you need. So you got the import.os. You're looking for under installed apps. You got to add. Here, I'll scroll up to it. Right here on your line 39. So I guess it would be on line 40. You're gonna have to add the todo.apps.todo config.
um, admin content.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording. We can keep going through this. I'm gonna stop the recording though
Okay.
because this is just rehashing the stuff that's in the
Which is